We are live. We're live. Um, hmm. We're live. Got my channel. Oops. Open that up. Our stream. The mic sounds weird on here, but it's okay. Copy. We're just sharing the post. Okay. I'm coming on today to talk about um, drawing hands. We're drawing hands. So here we go. I'm just going to tag Madara at Madara to discuss hands. Okay, this video will be saved, of course, so if you're watching this later, it's going to be saved. Everything. Okay, I just want to pull. Let me turn on my camera because I feel like everyone who's watching is like, why is your camera not on? It's okay, camera's on. I just want to pull up the image that Madara had posted. This is the hand. Copy image. And let's open up Photoshop. Today we'll just use Photoshop. I think it's easiest. New file. Okay. Paste. So we're just going to open up. I gotta turn on this. There we go. Okay, we're transitioning. Transition. I know there's no music, but I can't stand that royalty-free stuff. So we're just gonna go straight without it. Okay. So Madara was asking for help. He was like, what do you say? He was like, can I have any advice for drawing foreshortened arm? He does not know how to draw the foreshortened arm. So this is the panel that he's trying to recreate. He wants the foreshortened arm. And I'm just going to explain my process for how I do this. Okay, so let's resize this. Okay, so when we're thinking about the arms and hands, we have to think about the basic shapes. And those basic shapes are like, I'm going to look at my hand right now, and I'm just going to draw the basic shape I see. So it's like, oh, this is the wrong brush. It's not the brush I want to use. This is the brush I want to use. Okay. The basic shape I see is kind of this shape for the palm of the hand, and then this this basic shape is very close to a square or a rectangle. I believe a trapezoid is the correct term because it's got the converging lines and then the parallel lines. So it's kind of like a trapezoid shape with this little bit here on the side, this little like triangle bit that represents that chunk of the hand that the thumb is attached to. So if we think about the hand in this way, we break it down into fundamental shapes that are easier to draw. Fingers are cylinders, so fingers it's got 1, 2, and then the tip 3, and then the middle finger. You'll notice that the middle finger is the longest finger in most people. Ring finger. Ring finger is normally the same size, at least on my hand, it's the same size as the index finger. The ring finger, index finger are the same. So just keep that in mind. And then the pinky. And the pinky's like super low. Like it's kind of generally how it is. So it's like this middle finger. On my hand, the middle finger is like, it's almost like a full finger unit above the ring finger. It's kind of like that, yeah, that's about how it looks. And then the thumb, which is 1, 2. That's kind of the hand, right? And we imagine all these shapes are cylinders. So it's 2 circles attached. It's a cylinder. So if you know how to draw a cylinder like this, you do a circle. Oops, let me turn on my tour box isn't plugged in. Hold on. Okay, maybe I just need to set this up real quick because it's my hotkeys. If you know how to draw a cylinder one way, you'll know how to draw it the other way. So let's just undo. Okay. So typical way you draw cylinders, you draw a circle, and you draw another circle, and you connect those circles, and that's a cylinder, right? And then one of these is the top, and then one of them is the bottom, right? Although you wouldn't normally shade it that way because it's confusing. You would erase, if you want to erase to kind of recreate the cylinder. That's kind of the easy way to draw a cylinder, right? So if each finger section is a cylinder, then drawing the finger from like top down, it's going to be a little tube like that, almost like a little rectangle. And then if we have that tube come closer to us, we would create an ellipse, and then we attach the lines to the other ellipse. Well, I'm doing shorthand here, so obviously you would have it like that would be the other ellipse. I'm just doing shorthand, right? And then if you want it to be, let's move this over. If you want it to be even closer to us, you make it more of a circle. It becomes more of a circle as it comes closer to us. And then, like, when it's almost directly in front of us, it's like a full circle, almost a full circle. So this is like going this way. This is like going this way. Yeah, no worries. I just started. And then this one, you'd almost not see if I'm doing, if this is a cone on a little triangle stick, then you'll see how it goes from rectangle, and then we're rotating this way. So it goes rectangle, down, down, down. So you got to think of it that way, like a cylinder being turned in space. And that's a good way to practice, is you could just start saying like, well, this is a cylinder, and let me tilt the cylinder, and then let me tilt the cylinder more, and you keep like practicing cylinders at different perspectives, for different like angles. If you do a cylinder in perspective, you'd have it like bigger and then smaller. So you'd have it like it's coming towards us this way. So depends on how much foreshortening you want. You can have it flatter, like this one's like flatter, or you can have it more like push the perspective more. You can have it like big circle and gets really tiny, like this real dynamic finger if you start doing it like this much of a distortion. And so that's the basic unit. You got to think of it as like cylinders in space, right? So if we come over to this hand, this is the hand shape I drew. Now let me really take a look at my hand now. It's got the ring finger, which is one unit, and then this part kind of tapers in. So this little section's a little bit more tapered, and then the top of the finger is right there. And then it goes oh yeah, that's the other thing you got to consider too. The fingers actually connect into the hand. So like this is the knuckle. The knuckle is like within the hand structure. So you got to keep that in mind. So like knuckles here. This segment would go a little bit further than the ring finger segment. I'm sorry, the index finger segment. And then this would go even further. And then this would go like further. That's about how it looks in my hand as I'm holding it here. And then, like I said, the index fingers and the ring finger are like the same. So you can basically copy the index and ring finger. And that's normally a correct position on the hands. And then finally, the pinky finger. The pinky finger is so much shorter that it's an entire like segment shorter. And then the knuckles generally fan, they curve out. Typically, this angle of the curve it could be different on different people, but it generally curves out. And then you got the thumb, which the thumb is a segment. Let's erase this. Just erase that. And then the next segment of the thumb is here. So you need to just start thinking about, how do I make the cylinder turn in space? And if you really wanted to make it look like a finger, you need to start abstracting the finger a little bit. So it's not just a perfect cylinder, because our fingers aren't perfect cylinders like this. It's actually going to be like you got a little bit of fat on the bottom of the finger, and then you have the next segment, and it's got a little bit of like fat there, and then the top part's here, and obviously the fingertip is rounded, so it's not actually a perfect cylinder. And then you got this segment. There's this little segment here. This is the top of the palm, and it connects back to the knuckle. And then the hand like structure comes down I'm running out of page. That's kind of how it works. Is this the knuckle? It's back here. It's like if you look at your hand from this side, you're going to see the palm, but from the side angle, you've actually got the knuckle here, which rotates into here and then rotates into there. So when you make a fist, this entire unit moves, which it corresponds with like where's my camera? My OBS is in there. It corresponds with like the lines on my hand here. That fold is created by the knuckle. So you actually see that the fingers kind of eat into the palm of the hand. Just keep that in mind, because that's something that like um, anatomically is correct, but people don't consider it when they're drawing the fingers. You don't consider the finger goes all the way into the palm. But you'll see it on the lines of your palm, because you'll have this line at the top. That line at the top denotes where the crease happens. So just to keep that in mind. So let's try and let me turn off this layer. Let's try and foreshorten the way we do it with Daredevil. Daredevil's arm, the easiest way to draw arms, shorthand way is like I'm going to do it from the front. So the arm is in sections. It's 1, 2, 3, and then down here's the wrist, and that connects, and then you got the hand, which uh, the hand's like that, right? So you have this top section of the arm that's the deltoid.
Message on Instagram and the group with Todd Stashwick and Josephine.
And then you connect the bicep is here, and there's a tricep. The tricep bulges out like that, and then this muscle here, I don't even know what the name of that muscle is, connects to the elbow, goes down. Sometimes you got a gap here. Some people have gaps, some people don't. Depends. So that's like the arm. That's like a general like superhero arm, right? Just like a muscular arm. An arm like this in real life is like a bodybuilder's arm. Like nobody really has arms that defined in real life. Normally, there's some smoothness going on in the arm. You don't have as much definition. That's just something to consider. But okay, so if the arm is all these sections, what are we looking at here? We're looking at, let me just use purple, I guess. I think magenta, actually. Okay, so if the arm is all these sections, we're looking at these like round balls that make up the arm that are, and those roundness connect with these tubes. So it is another cylinder. It's another cylinder, but you got this mass on each section of the muscle. And so you got to consider the mass. So the way I draw foreshortened arms is like this. I'll start drawing the deltoid, and I know the deltoid is kind of round, and then I'll draw the bicep, and the bicep kind of has this different shape, and then I'll draw the forearm, I forgot what this is called, there's that muscle in the forearm, and then I'll draw the wrist. And then if you turn all this down a layer and do a new layer on top, you start connecting. It goes deltoid connects to the bicep, the forearm, and then the biceps in front, and then like you got the forearm, and you got a loose idea of an arm right there, right? So like, which is basically what the Daredevil drawing is right here. Because so to analyze a Daredevil drawing, we will take blue, maybe green. Green's opposite of red. So Daredevil drawing, it is this circle, the bicep circle, the forearm circle, and then the wrist. It's just like they're just layered and stacked in front of each other. So you got to think of it that way. It's like um, I'm not drawing a like this lumpy curve. I'm drawing a circle that's a tube in front of this other tube, in front of this other tube, in front of this other tube that's connected to this box that's got tube, 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 tube. So it's just like a bunch of tubes attached to each other. So you got to think of it that way. So when you start off drawing the arms and the hands will take longer than if if you've done it for a while. It's just with everything like that, like it just happens that way. It'll always take you longer when you start. Um, if I draw the hand foreshortened, I start like this. I normally I draw like a general idea where the hand is, and then I might draw some indications of the fingers, and then I kind of loosely. I'll even do this like for I'll even do this for like my current illustrator. I do this whole breakdown I'm doing. Like I do this for like my illustrations still when I'm really trying to figure out the hand. Uh, and then the pinky. But the pinky's pretty short, so. And then this is like the inner part where I said the knuckle is, and then this is like the that fat part where the that holds the thumb. Some people that some illustrators know the actual name to all this stuff, all the muscles. I don't. I just know by what I see. There's the front part of the thumb, the tip, and then there's the segment, and that connects. And so you can see how I've drawn the hand by thinking of it in tubes, and then you outline it, and you see how we've broken it up into tubes this way, and then so yeah, so that's the hand foreshortened, and then if you want to, this is the like the forearm, and then there's a little bit of like the bicep, and then you got the deltoid, and it connects to the chest. So you got like a hand coming towards us in space. That's like a quick way I would do it, right? Um, you just got to think of it in those tubes and these
Message
like
on Instagram and the group with Todd Stashwick and
cylinders,
Louisa Carl.
and then you just practice it. Like okay, so I want to draw a fist. Okay, well, a fist, it's that here's that boxy part of the hand, and then we already know there's going to be four fingers. One, two, three, four, and the fingers are down, so the tube is going down. The tube is going down, and the tube goes down. Tube goes down, and then you got that joint. So let's just put a little cylinder for the joint, and then there's this part. This is I just know the hand has this little fatty part, and then you got the thumb wraps around, and then you just indicate the knuckle, indicate where the finger starts, knuckle, finger, knuckle, finger, knuckle, finger. So that's basically a fist, right? But we think about it the same way. It's just spheres and cylinders. So all you have to do is think about is the cylinder point. There's a fist. Where's the cylinder point? If you can do this, that's a cylinder pointing that way. if you can do this, that's a cylinder pointing directly towards us. So like the arrow would be hard to see, directly towards us. Um, this cylinder's down. So you can start like if you could do that, then you can do a hand because a hand is just a bunch of cylinders. And you start off drawing the hand by drawing all the cylinders individually, and you slowly learn to indicate the shapes later. So you'll do this over and over again, where you like draw the cylinders over and over, like to start, and that's kind of how you have to learn. But eventually, you're going to be like, I don't actually want to draw like I don't actually want to draw all that stuff all the time. So you'll start doing really shorthand stuff. So like, let's say it's Spider-Man. Um, you might have it like, uh, and then this is how I sketch now because I don't exactly draw all the cylinders anymore. I kind of loosely indicate things. So I do that, and then so I'm kind of doing it. I'm kind of like doing the basic outline of the whatchamacallit, the shapes, and then you go in with a darker pencil and depending on how defined you want Spider-Man's arm to be, you might. I'm trying to draw this one in something like this, where it's like the idea is that it's coming towards us. I don't know if I'm getting that across because I'm kind of rushing. Um, and then you got the hand, and again, 1, 2, 3 segments. 1, 2, 3, and then the knuckles. So that's where you got the hand. That's obviously this isn't really foreshortening. It's kind of foreshortening up here, where it's kind of like coming towards us that way, and then the arm turns here. Um, but yeah. So that's kind of how you gotta think of it. You eventually get faster, and you'll just draw the arm out like how you want. And if you want to do the Daredevil arm, let's turn it off. Okay. So if I want to do Daredevil, let's say this. Daredevil's here. Here's his head. Here's his body, torso. Here's his arm. Finger, 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 and then thumb. That's kind of the loose interpretation, right? Then you would do another layer, and then you start like thinking about everything. Like, okay, so this is deltoid. You got the bicep, the forearm, this finger is here, and then this finger is here. These are the front. These are the tips of the fingers here, and then maybe the pinkies like here, and then you got the palm, and then you start. That's kind of like what you got, and then obviously as I'm drawing this, I'm correcting stuff. So you got kind of like this going on. See, it's very quick. Um, You do it quick, get it done, and then you refine. You don't need to like sit here and go, just draw it out real quick and then refine it. That's kind of how everyone does it. Once you start getting used to drawing, you will realize that like you can just block out um, you can just block out the shapes you want. Oops. Then you learn to build out the uh, the character. Another way to consider drawing the arm. Another way to consider drawing the arm is to think about it like this: a chain link. One section, and then the next section, and then this section. Because that's kind of how the arm is connected. So it's kind of like a chain link. So it's like this part here faces towards us. This part here faces that way. And then this part here faces towards us. So you think of like a chain link. So if we do the deltoid, it hooks into where the bicep is. And then you get a little bit of the tricep indication. And then you go down and do the forearm. This muscle wraps down, kind of all twists up here, can indicate the fist, right? You see how we did it. I'm drawing really quickly, so I'm doing really messy. Obviously, we want to like clean this up more, structure it better. So you start getting the basic form, right? So that's kind of how we build it out. Hello, Thunder Sketcher. We're just doing a quick tutorial about foreshortening and breaking down the body parts into basic shapes. So we can take a look at software is Photoshop. So there's the Daredevil piece. Here's my quick sketch. Daredevil piece. There's more attention to anatomy on the Daredevil piece, more so than what I'm sketching. I'm doing shorthand. So, like, a little bit more of a shorthand. Like, there's a better indication of the rib cage on the Daredevil piece. Why isn't it green? There we go. You got this little indication of the rib cage here, that little bump. So that's where the rib cage is. And then the bicep, not the bicep, sorry, the pectoral muscle is on top, which actually connects into the arm. Pectoral connects back into inside your arm, underneath the deltoid. But then you got the rib cage here. So with the rib cage, do I do traditional painting? I haven't. I haven't actually. I do traditional uh, pencil drawings and ink drawings. One of the ways we can think about the chest is like I know this is about an arm foreshortening, but I want to just explain the chest real quick. So you got the rib cage. The rib cage is like this, and then um, you'll have the torso. So you'll see indications of the rib cage right around here, and then you've got the pectoral muscles, and that can obviously the size of the pectoral muscles greatly differ depending on how strong your character is. I think this is actually more like this. So that's kind of a quick shorthand to do it. You can just build on top of the rib cage. Okay, so there's the pecs and then the arm. This guy's got his chest sticking out. He's like looking crazy. A huge chest. It's like that Rob Liefeld drawing. We can make his head a little bigger. If we make his head a little bigger, he's almost like Spider-Man. And if we make his head smaller, he becomes like big chest. So you're also a small artist. A pleasure to meet you. I don't think I've seen you on here before. But anyway, arms, foreshortening. Let's recap it. To draw a hand foreshortened, you got to break up the hand into shapes, cylinders, mainly cylinders, except for the palm. The palm's kind of like a rectangle trapezoid, right? I use spiral method for arms. I don't know what that is. Um, Cylinders, if you can rotate cylinders, you can start figuring out hands. Um, the arm, it's round shapes with cylinders. So you just need to consider how those round shapes and cylinders move in space, and then you can start foreshortening. And then the next step would be perspective. And I guess the spiral, I don't know what the spiral method is. I do draw like this sometimes. So like if I'm going to draw an arm in perspective, I would start by doing like the top of the arm, bottom of the arm, and then like the hand would be like here. Probably more inward. So I would do something like this, and then you have the thumb. So the hand's coming closest to us, and then the bicep goes back, and then the deltoids back here. And then you kind of get that look. Maybe the guy is like this. Maybe he's like going like whoa. He's like falling, and he's holding on to something over here. So he's got like this crazy perspective going on. Something like that. And then you would need to perfect it. You'd need to like refine it more. I would look at some kind of reference. Maybe it's like Spider-Man reaching for somebody. Although the hands would probably be more outward like this if he was reaching for somebody. Um, so then you need to erase everything. So you just erase all that, and then So, it's the same thing we just talked about, but like you just got to consider the perspective lines and like how things converge in space. You know, you can start figuring out exactly what's going on here. That could be a cool, like, oh, Spider-Man's saving somebody, you know, something like that. Coil Technic. Thanks. Um, so that's the next step, right? The next step is you consider perspective, you just consider the converging points. So the arm is in these segments that start small and grow and grow. Um, that's just something you need to like work out. You just need more practice. Um, even like some of the biggest artists that are out there, like some of those guys that are doing like League of Legends stuff, some of them are posing in a 3D modeling software and getting a screen capture of a super perspective pose, and then they reference that and draw. So even some of the most established artists out there, they're using reference. Um, this is an unreferenced drawing, but you can build from here. If I really wanted to lock this in, I might pose this in my 3D program. Hold on, let me show you my 3D program. Uh, Let me just turn this off real quick. 3D program, NDI capture, start broadcast. This is what I'm talking about. Let me open up and NDI source. Okay, transition. So some people I know because um, I've seen work in progress images. They'll take like here's a great example. You pose the character in 3D, and this is a 3D program I use on my iPad. And you can move the camera, and you can get that foreshortening, and you can reference. If you're confused about like how do I get that angle, you can find a program like this. This one's only like I think it's like 10 pounds. I'm in the UK. Yes, I'm not from the UK. I'm from Texas. I'm from Texas, but I live in London. But so I know that there's like riot artists that use a 3D program to get the character foreshortening perfect, and then they reference it. So you can't be afraid to do reference yourself because other people are doing that, like professionals are doing it, and um, you will learn eventually. You won't need to rely on the reference every time. You'll get better and better. So you will eventually learn to not need the reference, but you got to consider like, if I really want to get this guy like foreshortened, like we get him in there. Um, some 3D programs are better at are better at like the camera angles. This one's decent. Um, but if I really want to get in there, I would jump into Blender and like fix the camera in Blender, which I don't really use Blender that often, but I would pick up the tools in order to get the camera I need. But I've used this program pretty well to get some basic reference shots, um, mainly for like angles, and then you can add different lighting and stuff in here. Anyway, I'm just going to show you a tool. That's all I wanted to show you. That, like, you shouldn't be afraid to use tools like that. Oop. And that's, I think, the end of it. I gotta take stuff out and get ready to cook dinner. But I hope that helped. Hope that makes sense. Um, Let me just pull this back up real quick. Transition in. Any programs like that for Android? This one might be for Android. It's called Magic Poser. Magic Poser. It might be for Android too. Um, but anyway, hopefully that helps. It's just about cylinders, really. Just if you can draw cylinders, you can draw the body. You just gotta like get the cylinders figured out. So yeah, um, I gotta go. I gotta start prepping dinner because I'm cooking a lamb roast, and it'll take hours. So I gotta start prepping now. But thank you all for hanging out. Um, I'll be on in the future. I've got family in town starting this week, so I probably won't be on immediately going forward, but within a month or so, I might be doing regular streams again, and we'll do figure drawing, and yeah, we'll do figure drawing, right? So I think that's it. I think that's everything. I'm gonna jump off here. Thanks again for joining me. Hope you have a great day. Enjoy the great weather if you're in London.